What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future-free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one-armed madman. And with me today, we've got Birdie Jaworski. Is it right, Jaworski? I forgot to look at your last name until like 2 seconds ago. I put the mic up, put the mouse up.
That's
to
okay.
Check your last name. I apologize.
Jaworski.
I wouldn't have been able to pronounce it anyways. I'm terrible.
That's
with
all
names.
right.
Right on. So, Birdie, tell us a little bit about yourself. I think we're going to talk a little UFOs today, which is always fun.
Yeah, I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. New Mexico is, of course, the land of UFOs, beginning with the Roswell crash. And I have started a UFO group, and it has become not only the biggest UFO group in all of New Mexico, it's the most active UFO group in the entire country.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
it sure
fun.
is. We have lots of people who are members, and our members are not only in Albuquerque or in New Mexico, but all over the country, and some from other countries out there, because we do online events, Zoom meetings where people can talk about their encounters, their sightings, their paranormal experiences, and we do some in-person events each month too. We do 5 to 10 events a month.
Man, well, I bet you've seen some fun stuff doing that. I actually was considering something like this a few months ago. I was just going through, I think it was guests or something like that, and I came across like somebody who was a MUFON investigator, and I was like, you know what? I've heard of that before. Like I know about like Project Blue Book and all that stuff. I was like, maybe I should look into this. And I kind of like, I think I probably still have it opened up on my iPad, and I just haven't really gone back to it yet. And I was kind of thinking like, man, am I going to see anything cool? Like, am I going to learn stuff, or is this going to just kind of be, here's my $100 every month, every year, and here's your little notebook and stuff. So is it like worth doing the investigations and all that stuff?
I think that getting your MUFON investigator certification is actually a good idea if you're interested in UFOs. Their training is actually excellent, and their investigator's manual, their field manual, is fantastic. It lays out just how to investigate a UFO sighting and keep your objectivity while doing it, and how to help the witnesses keep their objectivity. It teaches you how to measure what's happened, take trace evidence if there is any, collect evidence so that you keep the chain of custody, so that the sighting that you're reporting can be fully documented for scientific researchers to look at down the road. It's a lot of fun. I did get my field training certification, and I'm not an active MUFON member, but I do support their work.
Well, that's good. Did you get a lot of calls working for them? Or I guess not working for them, it's volunteering.
It's volunteer. I never did, because I've always been in an area where there have been multiple other investigators, and it's kind of, there's always a lot of people ready to go.
There's a hierarchy of people.
There's a hierarchy, just like anything else.
That makes a lot of sense. And I was kind of thinking that same thing. Like, there's going to be 5 dudes in this valley that have been doing this for 20 years, and they're going to be getting the calls.
Yeah. But, it's still worth doing, and just getting outside. I mean, you live in Idaho. Yeah. You've got to have glorious night skies out there.
Not really. Right? You would think so, but we don't actually. It's very depressing. Like, I'm from Northern California, 100 miles north of San Francisco, and we had great skies there. And here, no, it's unfortunately really bad. Like, we have a lot of people think Idaho, and they think like Yellowstone, Coeur d'Alene, out in the middle of nowhere. You're just kind of roughing it, but no. We live in the Treasure Valley. I'm right outside of Boise, and there's over 1 million people in this valley. So like, I sit in traffic just like everybody else, unfortunately.
Right. Well, here in Albuquerque, it's a very small city, smaller than Boise for sure. And it only 10 miles out of town, and you are in national forest, or you're in BLM land out in the desert, up in the mountains. It's amazing. So we have glorious skies here. Although I live right in the city, and it looks like a suburban neighborhood here, but it's the city, and you get some light pollution, but it's a short drive out to see incredible things.
Yeah, I can do the same thing. I can drive out. I actually was going to go and look at Northern Lights last summer, and I was
That's on
all
my
set up
bucket
to
list.
go. Yeah, I was like all set up to go. We were looking at like the the internet. It's saying like, it's going to be this day or
Yeah.
that day, and so right before we're like, I I'm kind of an old wuss at this point, and I don't like staying up till 4 o'clock in the morning. And the day we were planning on going, it was like an article came up right before we left, like, yeah, it's not going to happen tonight. And we're like, you know what?
Oh,
Screw it. We're not going to go and
man.
stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning. And then, of course, like first thing in the morning, like so many pictures from just right outside the city. And it's like,
Right.
screwed it up.
Ah,
But one of these
I've
days,
always
one of
wanted to
these
see the
days.
Northern
Yeah.
Lights.
Well, we're coming into a higher a time of higher solar activity in the
That's
sun's
right.
cycles. So it's not gonna like I was kind of bummed, like, man, maybe we missed it. But no, we're still I think this year could be even better than last year. So maybe you'll get lucky.
Oh, cool. Well, I hope that you get to see something amazing
Me
out
too.
there.
So tell me, like, have you done a call, an investigation, something where you show up and you go, this is not whatever did this wasn't from here. Like I've seen a couple weird things in my day. Like I have a hot
Yeah.
tub and I've always looked up in the sky and stuff, but I've seen a couple weird things. Nothing that
Yeah.
I feel like couldn't be explained by something else, essentially, which is kind of a bummer because I've always wanted to see something. So
Right.
where are you at with that?
Well, I've had my own UFO sightings. And the first one I ever had, I was only 7 years old. And this was back in the 70s. I'm old. And it was over Christmas. And my sister and I were playing with our Christmas gifts. We had gotten a Lone Ranger and a Tonto doll for Christmas because Lone Ranger was popular back then. And it was snowing outside. The sky was getting dark. We were playing, and through the window, this strange light came in. It was kind of bluish, greenish, grayish. It looked really odd. And we dropped our dolls and we looked out the window, and we saw, both of us, this silver metal disc just hovering there. And the light was coming from that disc. And as we're staring at it, the dolls stood up by themselves and started spinning in opposite
Oh,
directions.
that's weird.
And yeah, isn't that weird? And that literally is the last thing that we remember. Now, I was 7 years old. My sister was about 5.5, 6. And we didn't have any basis for even knowing what to call that because probably had never heard of a UFO at that point, or aliens or anything otherworldly. I just didn't know what it was. The next day, my mom said, "Oh, you just had a nightmare." And it wasn't a nightmare. That actually happened. So that's kind of what got me on this journey, was having that experience of my own. And ever since then, I've just known that there's something out there that's non-human. I don't know what it is or where it comes from. There's lots of theories on that. But I've talked to so many people over the years, and especially since starting this group, people that have had encounters like that, or they've seen strange craft in the sky that have moved in weird angles and speeds that can't possibly be conventional aircraft. Now, it doesn't mean to say the government doesn't have any kind of secret technology out there that we're unaware of, but so many things people report seem to be something non-human. So
Interesting. So
yeah,
my thought when you say that is like when you say that's the last thing I remember, that doesn't seem like a
right.
natural memory to me. So do you feel like maybe something happened that you don't remember?
Yes, I actually do. Just so many people overall, the whole world, have reported kind of similar experiences. They see something, they see, a figure. I didn't see an alien per se or any kind of creature. I just saw the craft. But so many people have that, they call it missing time,
Mhm.
where you have the first part of the experience and then you
Yeah,
find yourself
no,
somewhere
I
else
know
or you wake up
exactly how that
later.
is. Like
Yeah,
I'm an amputee. I climbed up a
right.
power pole. I remember climbing up the power pole, putting my leash around the
Oh,
power
there you
pole,
go.
and then I remember
Yeah.
waking up, looking at the sky, wondering what the fuck happened. So like
Yeah, there you
I'm there with
go.
you. Have you ever done any like hypnotics?
I have
Like
not.
nah,
I have not. I
like
am not brave enough to do that, to be
I'm
honest.
kind of the same way. Like, I don't really want to remember what happened in this
Right.
case. Like, I don't know if you would want
Yeah.
to remember what happened or not. Like, you don't really know. It's like there's kind of it could be a nasty bag of worms down there
Right. It
that
really
you may
could
not
be
want to
just
look
as,
into, right?
yeah, if you look at the literature and all the different studies done with, thousands upon thousands of people across the world, what they report when they undergo this hypnotic regression does not sound pleasant to me.
No.
There's probes and
Yeah.
medical procedures. And
Yeah, no,
I
there's
was
that
just a
movie.
little kid. I
There's
don't
that
think I
movie,
want
The
to.
Sixth Kind. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, the
Oh,
creepy
yeah.
one where she's
Yeah.
like levitating and shit like that.
Exactly.
Oh, that movie
Exactly.
creeped me out so bad when I watched it. I was like, if I see the owl across the street from my house, because we have an owl that lives next door, I'm like, I'm going to shoot that thing tonight. I swear to God.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Oh, man. So, like, a lot of people think that, so like, I'm not completely there on alien visitations so far.
Right.
Like, I haven't seen any, like I said, I haven't really seen anything. And I think
Yeah.
like the further we go in time, the less
Yes.
like believable the evidence is getting, essentially. Like the more pixels involved, the more chance for fuckery,
Oh.
essentially. And
Yeah. No.
it's such a
I,
weird thing, right? Like to
it
go
is.
like,
It is.
how can we verify what these, like I've seen some videos on the internet. I don't know if you saw the
Right.
the MH370 video where
I did see the
like that's a
MH370
very
with the three
compelling
little objects circling
that's a
the
very
plane.
compelling video, and the guy,
It
he makes a
is.
very compelling case, and I look at that and I go, man, that's something.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you that there is a lot of opportunity for people to fake things, CGI,
Yeah.
and now we have all of this AI software, that can generate images instantly. You give
Yeah.
it a prompt, and it creates something. And there are some new, even movie making AI softwares that are becoming available, where you literally cannot tell the difference between what's on the screen and reality,
Yeah.
just from visual standpoint. And so there is opportunity there for people to fake things. And so I don't really count the modern, I'll say, photographic evidence unless it comes from a highly trained observer. We have the Navy pilots, for example, who filmed using there's all kinds of sensors on their ship and their planes. You've probably heard of the famous Tic Tac video, the gimbal, the Go Fast. These were released and acknowledged by the Department of Defense to be real videos of objects that they can simply not explain. And the pilots have had, they had these amazing encounters with these objects, and they've described them in detail and all over the media. And I think that evidence like that is very compelling. Plus, we just have the testimony of tens of thousands, maybe perhaps then hundreds of thousands of human beings over many, many decades. And it seems to be that this phenomenon's been around for a very long time. There's descriptions of it that go back in the literature hundreds of years. There's accounts in the Bible even that could be describing UFOs, Ezekiel's wheels within wheels, fiery wheels in the sky,
the Vermana in India.
Yeah.
Like to me,
Vedas,
I'm
all of that.
Like I'm on board with a lot. Like I'm more apt to
Yeah.
believe like a Betty and Barney Hill story.
Right.
Then once the government started getting into it in this last year, I've kind of really taken a big step back because like I'm an anarch. I don't trust the government at all. So once they start getting into it, I go, man, like I don't think David Fravor's a liar. Like I think I think he's kind of like really just regurgitating what he saw. But like when I look at that, I go, man, what did this guy see? Did he see what they wanted him to see? Who is they? Like, is it, did the aliens want him to see this? Was this, the CIA or some other, I think a breakaway civilization is a big possibility personally.
I think that's a big possibility too, to be quite frank. I think breakaway civilization is, on kind of a short list of mine of what's possible.
To me, like,
and I don't think you can trust, a government explanation. If the president came out today and said, we are not alone. I mean, I would believe that statement because I've had my own experience. Right. But if if the government rolled out a list of qualities, they're from this place or that place, I don't know that I would trust that data,
Mhm.
honestly, because the government has, and I don't want to sound too much like a conspiracy theorist. I am a little bit, I
Oh, I
suppose.
totally am.
Yeah,
You're
I
fine
know. And
here.
I
You're
think that's great.
good.
And I don't blame you, because look at all of the things that the government has covered up over the years. There's things like
Yeah.
MK
Mhm.
Ultra, Project Paperclip, Project Mockingbird. There's a
Mhm.
million. I mean, I'm well versed in
I lived in San
all of it.
Francisco for a few years. They were,
Yeah.
testing poisons in that area
Right. Yeah.
at one
That
point.
does not surprise me at all. It's just, there's a constant, discovery over time of different things that the government has done. And, there's arguments on both sides. Well, they needed to do it to understand X, Y, and
Mhm.
Z and whatever, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can make all these arguments in either direction. But when it comes to UFOs, I believe that the people truly have the right to know
Oh,
if
I'm
we
with
are
you.
alone and if we are not. And without any kind of qualifiers, without, I don't want the government to come out and say we are not alone, but we can't tell you any more than that because of national security. I
Mhm.
don't think that that's fair or sufficient.
And I don't think
It's
that would be believable, in a
I don't
lot of
think it
ways.
would
Like,
be
I don't
either.
think people would look
Yeah.
at that and go, "Oh, wow, we're so, enlightened at this point." Like someone like me, if Joe Biden came on TV
Right.
today and said, "We're not alone.
Yeah.
I was abducted by aliens when I was 15," I'd be like, "That's a made up story. You don't even remember when you were 15." So like, he tells weird stories all the time. And like to me,
Right.
they've got so much technology that we don't know about. Like
Oh,
talking plasmas is a big one where like,
plasma's
David
huge.
Fravor could have looked at something that was appeared to be solid, but was actually being projected from a satellite, multiple satellites to make it look like a solid object traveling. And, how could we ever confirm something like that? They're never going to let us take a look at their weapons. They don't even, when they put out David Fravor's video, they get rid of the numbers on the bottom, like we could ever do
Oh,
anything with that,
sure, sure. Yeah, I think, yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're
Yeah.
saying here. And then also just the whole idea that, maybe they are manufacturing things. Maybe the government does have technology and it's not like the technology is in the hands of literally the government. We're talking about defense contractors
Yeah.
here and black
Yeah.
budgets and,
Even if it's not a
you know,
breakaway civilization, it's a
right,
breakaway group. Like,
right, right.
hey, we've had this for 50 years. We're not outsourcing it. Like, we have a black budget that keeps us funded. Nobody's ever going to see it. Nobody's ever going to actually audit the Pentagon. So they're going to get as much money as they need or want, or maybe they have alternate ways of producing money. Maybe that's where all the missing gold went. There's so many weird things that could be going on. My mind goes to crazy places. So, one of the big
It's,
thing. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, that's all true. I believe that the government, in terms of defense contractors, is ahead of general population and technology. I don't think there's a person on the planet that
Yeah,
would
that wouldn't
deny
agree
that
with that. Yeah,
fact.
for sure.
Right. But even taking all of that, you can look back through history, going back decades and even longer, and people still report the same kinds
Yeah.
of things that people report today.
Mhm.
And I don't think 100 years ago that was a black ops project, whatever
No,
people were
I'm right there
seeing.
with you. And then there's a lot
Yeah.
of stories that I like fully believe something happened to these people. Like
Yeah.
Betty and Barney Hill, it's
Yeah.
such a like a strange story where there's just no reason for it to be made up. Like
No.
the hurdles you have to jump to go, okay, this was made up. You go, wait a minute. They're like, these people have zero reason to do that. Like now there's,
why would
reasons
you?
to do it.
Why
But
would
back
you?
then, man, all they were
Yeah.
doing was bringing unwanted attention to themselves, which they didn't need.
Exactly.
You
They
know?
didn't need it. They
Yeah.
didn't need, they were getting enough unwanted attention as it was, and unfairly.
Yeah.
And then they, and then to be, this, the whole stigma
Mhm.
associated with the encounter they reported, that doesn't lead for a peaceful, quiet, pleasant life. It's not like they made money on the
Mhm.
on the event. It was
No, it destroyed their
traumatizing.
lives.
You watch videos of them and interviews that they've done, and it was clearly a deeply emotional, traumatic event for them. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
very, very believable.
All right, one more thing on the government, and then we'll move on to funner stuff. So
You're good.
I've been kind of hard on like the UFO online community. Like I kind of go into chat rooms every once in a while and make a stink about these types of things. I think that like a lot of the people, you don't seem to have a blind spot, but I think a lot of people in the UFO community have a blind spot when it comes to the government. And they were just so jacked up when we got these UFO hearings. Oh my God, we're going to bring these people up and the government's going to grill them and get to the bottom of the story. And I was just kind of like, man, that's not what this is for. This is for something else. Like, we don't know what it's for yet. Like, maybe they're testing the waters to see if there's, an appetite for a Project Bluebeam type of scenario where we can kind of maybe run a fake alien invasion, or, maybe we can do some type of thing that we did with the pandemic where we can lock everybody down because of the threat of aliens. So like, I'm not really on board with these. I don't think that we're even going to see another one essentially. So
well, no, we're going to see more
you
hearings.
think we will? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are good Congress people who are highly interested in this subject, some of whom have had encounters of their own and they haven't come forward with it. But, you hear things here and there. And I think that some of these good people are really pushing for disclosure, for true disclosure. And I think some of them have been taking a step back, saying things like, well, why is the narrative always centered around the idea of national security? Mm-hmm. Has a UFO ever, gone out and shot up a city, shot up a military base? No, there are no reports of that. Mm-hmm. There have been some reports over many, many years, but the number of these is very small when you compare it to the whole body of evidence, where some humans have been harmed by getting near objects. They've suffered things like radiation burns mm-hmm. or other kinds of body trauma. But national security doesn't seem to be a real threat to me when it comes to this phenomenon. And the fact that every hearing has focused on this idea of national security concerns mm-hmm. me.
Yep. That's kind of one of my red flags, yeah. We're under attack. Yeah. We're always, everything can be a national security issue in this country if they want it to be,
right.
Like the border is not an issue until military age males get involved. And then, now it can be a scare tactic. Like, oh, the border, we got military age males coming in. And I have always, they were talking like that during 9/11. After 9/11, I lived in San Francisco and they were always complaining about, oh, terrorists are coming. And then like 10 years later, they're still doing the same thing and it never happens. So
it never happens.
I'm
Generally,
interested to see where they go with it, because I think that they've got a plan that we're obviously not privy to.
Well, I think if you look at I don't know if you're familiar with the Schumer-Rounds amendment that made its way through. Okay, so Chuck Schumer, head of the Senate, mm-hmm. and Mike Rounds, Republican, they got together and they authored this bill with the help of some others called the Schumer-Rounds Amendment. And it didn't make it through Congress the first time. And it did pass the Senate, didn't make it through the House, but it looks like they're going to take another go at it this session. And this amendment is frankly remarkable. It's the most remarkable piece of legislation I have ever seen. It's 65 pages long, around there, and it covers what they are calling a controlled public disclosure campaign. It literally uses that language. They're taking 7 years to disclose the truth of UFOs to the American public, and they're starting with information that is older than 25 years. So that would include Roswell, things mm-hmm. like that. And they're going to do a slow rollout. This actual amendment, and you can look it up online and read it. It uses the terms non-human intelligence dozens of times.
I hate that term. I hate that term. I really do, because a non-human...
Hey, my dog has non-human intelligence.
I was just going to say my dog is right there. So yeah, I hate that term. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, the language is carefully crafted. I guess that was the point I was kind of getting to, is that it's crafted um to look a certain way and to feel a certain way. And they do get the whole idea of everything being parsed with the whole view of national security in mind in there. And so it's a really interesting piece of legislation. It kind of tantalizingly has the promise that we're going to be told the truth, but there's enough language in there, if you read it carefully, so that you realize that I don't know that we would get the truth if this plan is actually followed. And, there were a few members of Congress that said that they just think it should be just full disclosure, none of this controlled disclosure, none of this slow rollout.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, to me, like if they put Thomas Massey on the UFO panel, I'd be like, okay, that guy like wants to get to the bottom of this. There's a couple Democrats that I can't name off the top of my head that like I would go, okay, like that person wants to get to the bottom of this. But the people they put on there, I go, these guys don't care. They don't give a shit what's going on.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. It is interestingly enough, a bipartisan kind of issue. We have people on both sides of the aisle who are super interested in this and seem to be working together on this whole question, which I find refreshing, especially in today's political climate where everyone's at each other's throats all the time. Especially coming up, the election. And it's just scary times.
It is,
no matter what side of the aisle you're on. It's just scary.
That's why I'm on neither side of the aisle. It's a lot easier that way.
I'm on neither side myself.
Neither side, right? That makes it a whole lot easier to operate when you don't have to like play mental gymnastics to make excuses for your side. Like that just is enlightening for anybody who's still a Democrat or Republican. Like try and figure something else out because it's not the way. All right, so let's get into some funner stuff here. So, one of the main like reasons that I have a hard time with alien visitations is the Fermi paradox. So, we have this massive like universe that goes on forever, maybe even further than forever, like if that's even possible, and it seems to be like prime for life, and we don't see any yet. We see these craft buzzing around our fighter jets and through our cities and picking up young girls out of their bedrooms, in the 70s. Like that's a lot of different pieces of data to kind of hand wave away and go, it's just a psychological phenomenon, right? So where are you at with the Fermi paradox?
Well, I think you have to kind of look at who we are, who humanity is and where we are from a technological standpoint today. We now have the James Webb telescope that was recently, brought online, and now we're being able to see further than we've ever been able to see before. But prior to the James Webb, we weren't able to see like what was happening on any other planet. We could only measure the spectra of, what kind of light it emitted, and to make decisions based on what that might indicate. That a certain spectra of light may indicate a particular kind of atmosphere, and we don't know what kind of life might develop in atmospheres unlike our own. So I don't think that to say we haven't seen anything out there means really much of anything. We're kind of little ants on this planet that haven't made it further than human-wise to the moon. I mean, unless you believe some of the other conspiracy theories about our deep space program, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm like, I've always said, like, if you told me we didn't actually land on the moon, I'd go, cool. And if you told me that there was a base on the backside of the moon, I'd say cool. Like I don't know. Either one of those could be possible to me.
I think we landed. I mean, personally, I think we landed on the moon. I think that, at different astronauts, Edgar Mitchell saw UFOs when he was live, and he talked about it up to his deathbed, about the government was covering this up, that they experienced things during their Apollo missions. And, if you just look at who we are and what we're capable of, we're not capable of first of all, seeing truly what's out in the universe that would be like our size, for example, say an alien was about the size of a human, we couldn't see that. The other thing too is that we don't really know what this phenomenon is. We're making assumptions when we talk about the Fermi paradox that these are aliens that are coming from another planet. And perhaps they are not. There's a lot of talk these days about perhaps they are coming from another dimension. They're interdimensional. Perhaps they're ultra dimensional. There's this whole idea that this was their planet first. They've always been here, and that, you know, they have bases maybe under the oceans. There's been a lot of sightings, including, you know, David Fravor. They saw the Tic Tac descend into the water, and there seemed to be some kind of a mothership type thing underneath there that the Tic Tac was going towards. So maybe the aliens are actually here, the non-human intelligence,
Whatever
the
it
dogs
is.
on the spaceship, right? And or maybe they, you know, there's all kinds of theories that don't involve another planet. And all of those theories, and as far as I'm concerned, are as valid as any other. We don't have enough evidence. You know, as a regular member of the human public, we don't have enough evidence. I think the evidence probably is out there somewhere in black ops projects, you know, special access programs. There's a lot of money thrown into all of that, and who the heck knows what all those guys have.
Yeah. Do you believe in faster than light travel? Like if we are being visited by something, and like there's something going on in the skies, whether it's a visitation or whatever, but do you think that these things can travel faster than light?
I think that it's absolutely within the realm of possibility. I mean, our physics is changing all the time. There are new discoveries, and just the other day I was reading this article that was in, I believe, the New York Times, talking about dark energy, how it may not be anything like what scientists believed, that, you know, there may be some new theory that could account for things like dark matter, dark energy. And so I think that, you know, all of our theories about space travel, faster than light travel, it's just that, theories. We don't have any hard evidence about any of it. So I think it is possible. I'm not a physicist, so, you know, I can't speak to the
I actually
to
was
the
just
actual mathematics
right.
there,
No,
but
me neither.
we're finding that things we thought were impossible are possible now. All kinds of interesting things, and so why not?
I was listening to a podcast earlier this week. I just went and was trying to find out the name of the theory that it uses. But these guys had a theory that dark matter and dark energy don't exist, actually. And they're thinking that, like, gravity works on certain scales, and then when you get to other scales, it's something different. So I think it's fun that, like, we can't even agree on how the universe operates still
we
at
can't.
this point.
We know
you know?
nothing.
And then,
We're stuck on
here
this
we are
little
trying
ball.
to figure out, like, what this advanced thing could probably be. So, Mike, my main problem with the Fermi paradox and all of this stuff. So one of my favorite YouTubers is Isaac Arthur. I don't know if you've ever watched any of his videos. Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur. You could go and watch like hours and hours of his videos. They're great.
Yeah.
And he has a theory he calls the Dyson dilemma. And the Dyson dilemma is essentially that we don't see Dyson spheres anywhere in the universe, essentially. And that would be something that we, like, theoretically could, like, at least now, as long as James Webb Space Telescope isn't a video game, which, like, this thing's out at a Lagrange point that we could never double check. So this could totally be a video game, you know, and I don't think it is. Like, I think it's probably real, but it, you know, totally could be a video game. And then you get people like Linda Moulton Howe, who I love Linda Moulton Howe. I can listen to her for hours, but
hey, she lives here in Albuquerque.
She's great. Like, she's my favorite.
Awesome.
Like, I can listen to her for hours, but, like, I know she thinks that we've got, like, aliens all around us and all of these star systems all around us. And to me, that I have a hard time with that, because I go, all right, how did they get here? How did their probes get here? Like, how are we not seeing this? How are they not everywhere, essentially? If they've got faster than light travel and they're coming here without some big, massive spaceship, because if they had some, you know, if we're talking a planetary civilization that was coming here to check us out, that was a couple thousand years ahead of us, even a million years ahead of us, like, I think we'd have a decent idea of how they would do that. Like, this is completely like discounting like ultra terrestrials and different dimensions and all that kind of crap, which
Right.
could totally be there. But like, if space travel is what we conceive it to be at this point, you make a big ship,
Right.
you go, you have a
Sure.
fusion engine, you gather fuel along the way, and you make your way around the galaxy in 2 million years or something. I think it would take 2 million years at 10% light speed.
Right.
So essentially, like, if we make it another couple thousand years, we could have this entire galaxy colonized in a couple million years, and we don't see any of that, which is, it's both like encouraging that like there's things to still be discovered in this universe. It's not like there's something else out there that's got it all figured out that we just haven't ran into and got the answers from yet. Like, so that's encouraging, but also terrifying that like other civilizations out there could have, got to where we are today and lost it all.
Oh, it's very possible. It's very possible. But even if they did make it and colonize a big part of the galaxy, even our sector of the galaxy, how would we know? How would we know that?
Well,
I mean, they're not on Saturn and Jupiter, right? But the nearest star is so many light years away.
Yeah.
And
so my point on that one was the Dyson sphere argument, essentially. Like, if you go, like, if we are still in, a 0.5 civilization, and then we're going to move on to a type 1, a type 2, type 3, you would think that we would start to see Dyson spheres, because you're going to be needing to generate energy, essentially, to create this, spaceships that can leave your solar system and keep traveling. And maybe there's better ways to generate energy than a Dyson sphere.
There might be
there
ways
totally
that
could
we
be,
don't
like
understand different kinds of different forms of energy. We haven't even
like wormholes.
discovered yet. Yeah, wormholes, space, bending of space and time. The whole. I remember watching years ago, I think on Cosmos with Carl Sagan, him folding a piece of paper to show how it might be possible to travel instantaneously from one point to another if you can fold that space time. So I think we're making a lot of assumptions based on current technology and like, hey, 100 years ago, we had no cell phones, we had no computers, we didn't have practically anything we have today in terms of technology. People were still living very basic, close to the earth lives. That was still the Industrial Revolution. So we had machinery, things like that. But we don't have, that's just 100 years. Imagine what we might discover in just another 100, another 50 even. Just if you look at the last 20 years, how fast technology has progressed. We went to having cell phones that were huge, right?
Yeah.
20 years ago, and now it's actually a computer in your hand.
Or in your brain.
Or in your brain. Yeah, Neuralink. There is no way I am doing that. There's just no way.
I could. I'm open to it. Actually. Good. Like, because of the way I am.
Yeah. Okay. Well, see, now that makes sense. It makes sense for somebody who needs it for mobility.
Like a hand that could do everything and feel and touch and all those things. So I'm open to it.
Absolutely.
Actually, once it, like, for people like me, for people like the guy who got it, I'm all for it.
No,
once it starts going to you, because you've got anxiety or something like that, that's where I start to go, hold on, we need to pump the brakes here, people.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah. For terms of like mobility or other kinds of issues like that, 100%. Yeah. I have a brother who's had a stroke and has paralysis on one side of his body. And it would be awesome if he could walk or move his arm, like he used to be able to do. And so, for somebody like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who knows what type of, maybe they found some materials or something interesting so I don't know if you watched the video from the Neuralink guy. It was very interesting. So he was talking about like physical movements versus imagined movements. And to me, like, I don't know anything about computers. So me and my buddy were just talking about this last night. It's like, how does the computer differentiate between those things? It's almost like our brain is primed for this thing and ready for it. and just knows how to communicate with it. And maybe
Yeah.
that's because it's some sort of weird substance that we found. Who knows, right?
Yeah, transhumanism. I mean, we're
It's a real
halfway there.
thing.
Phones are an extension of ourselves. And I have this cool device. It's a headband. It's called a Muse headband.
Hmm.
And what it does is it actually measures your brain waves and it can give you biofeedback. So if you're meditating, it can show you when your brain waves are in a particular restful state so
Hmm.
that you're achieving, maximum meditation potential.
Maximum zen.
Your maximum zen, baby.
Yeah, baby.
But but it's interesting. You can and there are other wearables similar to that are way more expensive where people can actually play games using only
Yeah.
their thoughts.
Yeah.
And the computer responds to that. You can move things around on a screen.
Hmm.
And there's new technology where they're able to actually visually show what some people are dreaming.
That's something,
I
isn't it?
saw,
And that's
yeah,
with
I saw a news
EEG.
article on
Like
that.
if we could
Yeah,
make like
right,
an
right,
MRI machine that was small enough
right,
to go into a hat, we would be
right,
able to do some
exactly.
really cool things. And like,
Yeah,
I heard Elon Musk say this years ago, where he was saying like, essentially, we know nothing about the brain. So like an
right,
EEG machine is like taking a stethoscope to the outside of a factory wall
exactly,
and trying to deduce what's going on inside. So like, imagine once you
right,
have you drop your probe down into that factory and you can map the factory. And once the factory's mapped out, you know where everything is and what everything does, which could take a million years to figure out. But
yeah,
then you could deduce it from the outside, and a normal person could just have a hat on, and opposed to having to go into your brain. Like, I don't think that
right,
the
right. And
future
so,
is brain chips. Like, we're gonna have nanotechnology, or we're gonna have some
yes,
sort of hat that you can put on. You could have some sort of
right,
artificial hair. You could have something you could
absolutely.
wash your hair with shampoo that's got nanobots in it that can like, we're gonna do some crazy stuff. Have you ever seen or read the books Three Body Problem?
Yes, and
Ugh,
I watched the Chinese
I did too.
version,
I did too. It was so
which the
good.
all 30 oh, it's so good.
So
And I
good.
watched the new Netflix version, which I also really enjoyed.
Me
Different,
too. Different, but
but
still good.
yeah, the books are fantastic. And I think that now see that's kind of a in a weirdly realistic way of
I
looking at the whole UFO problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
can
think he stepped
imagine.
it up. I think he
I do
took it
too.
to a
I
new
do
level.
too.
Like, when I read that
Yeah.
book, I was like, holy crap. Like, I'm kind of, I got goosebumps thinking about it. Like, I've read 200 sci-fi books since I've got hurt. And I never
Yeah.
like read something where I went, holy shit, that is so
Right.
far out of left field that I never could have
Yeah.
conceived of something like that. And there could be weird things like that going on. We
There
could have
could be.
that fleet could be on its way here right now, for all we know.
Absolutely. And, and we might have little, teeny tiny particulate probes that are
Hmm.
whisking around Earth, following us, cataloging absolutely everything that we do. So when the army comes, we're toast. It's
Yeah.
very possible.
Or it
And
could
just,
even be a being in a different reality that can
that's right.
conceive. If you've got a being that's made out of like electromagnetic energy and was able to
Yeah.
upload its consciousness just into energy fields, they could be
Right.
saturated or with every person. And imagine if they're advanced enough, they could be using that MRI just with their minds to literally record everything that every person is doing 24/7. Possible.
Yeah. It's possible. And just to go back, talking about, EEGs and wearables and
Yeah.
where we might be able to go with this technology that utilizes brainwaves and other kinds of bodily functions. I mean, just imagine if the people who, it's reported that people have alien encounters and they're reading their minds telepathically or
Yeah.
sending telepathic information. What if these creatures, these beings actually are just using that kind of technology? It may not even be
Hmm.
that they're more advanced in a consciousness or spiritual kind of way. They're just merely using some kind of technology to impart that information or take that information. So
Yeah.
there's so much we don't know. All we know is that we have all these cool stories, these amazing
Yeah.
stories from people going throughout our entire human history of encounters with things that they couldn't understand or explain. And here I am with my own encounter. I can't understand or explain. I just know that it happened.
Yeah. No, I'm
Yeah.
there. Like
Yeah.
I if you told me that when I got hurt that I was passed out for 2 minutes, I'd say okay. If you told me
Right.
that I was
Right.
passed out for 200,000 years, I'd go, yeah, kind of felt like that too.
Rip
So
Van Winkle.
there's this time period of two
Yeah.
to however there where I was somewhere else. I was gone. It wasn't like
Yeah.
getting knocked out on a dirt bike, which I've done a million times. Like I was
Right.
somewhere else. I was gone. Whether I was dead or whether I was mentally, however you want to put it, I don't know what happened, and I don't know that it's necessarily something that I want to know.
Yeah. Sometimes things are better left unknown because maybe the horror of the knowing could affect you or change you in some really essential way. And
Yeah,
and your body knows, your body knows how to protect you. And your mind and your whole brain system, it's part of your body and it's protecting you when you don't remember something.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is something. So what?
Yeah.
Where do we want to go from here? What do you think about what do you think about Mars? So there's so many weird things about Mars, right? Like
There are so many weird
it's
things
just
about
such a weird
Mars.
thing. What do you think's going on with Mars?
Well, there we sent the Mars probes out there, and you can go on on NASA's actual website and look at all of the photos that these probes have sent back. And they're fascinating.
Mhm.
It looks a lot like New Mexico, frankly,
It
out in the
does.
desert.
And
It's just
they've
sand and
got side by
rocks and
side pictures of a
mountains.
lot of like New Mexico
Yeah.
desert with it, and it actually is because like NASA fakes
Right,
images
right.
all the time.
They do fake images all the time. So it makes you wonder, when you look at things like this, what am I really looking at? And then there are a number of images that people have found, and they've been posted all over. You can look them up on the internet, where people have, and you can then go to the corresponding actual page
Yeah,
on NASA and see the exact same image they're talking about. And there's crap in the sky. There are things that appear to be in the sky, and people say, oh, it's a lens flare. Oh, it's a smudge on the lens. Well, the next picture doesn't have that same smudge. So, there's a lot of weird stuff going on with Mars. I don't know what to make of any of it, frankly. I know that there are features on Mars that people have purported to be pyramids, or the infamous face on Mars
yeah,
that, depending on how you look at it, looks like a face or doesn't look like a face. And there's just a lot of interesting thing. And going back, different cultures have had stories about Mars, that people came from Mars, or that there was a civilization there. And that's just interesting to me
yeah.
too. If you look at some of our mythology,
Right. There's so many.
mythology came from all real stories, that people were telling each
Yeah.
other. And you tell stories when you want to remember something.
Yeah.
So,
And so,
yeah.
like, there's weird things about us, right? Like, humans, we're the
Yes.
weirdest
Yes.
animal on this planet. We get
We are
sunburned,
so
we
weird.
get back
Yes.
problems, we get
Yes.
arthritis and shit. And, like, a
Yes.
lot of that could be explained by we're from somewhere else. Maybe
Right.
Mars did have something, had a civilization that destroyed itself or died out or
Right.
whatever happened, and they came here 100 to
Hey,
300,000 years ago. And
it's
that's why we get
possible.
sunburned, because we're really from further away from the sun. And that's
Right.
why we get
Right.
back problems, because Mars has 2/3 the
Gravity.
gravity that we do. So the
That's
gravity's
right.
just killing us and sinking us down. So like I could
Yes.
totally see something weird like that happening, where they were on their last leg and they just made it. There's also like there's a weird theory about like nuclear bombs on
Yes,
Mars.
yes. Yes. And there are theories about nuclear bombs that happened here on Earth in ancient
Yes,
history.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so, there's all that evidence too, that even here on Earth, that we've had civilizations in the past that destroyed themselves, and then we rebuilt from the beginning, and then that civilization destroyed itself. There's some significant evidence that could point to that. Maybe it points to something else, I don't know, but it's just damn interesting.
Yeah.
You look at, we know so little about our own history. Just we don't know. We can't even actually explain to precise satisfaction how the pyramids were made.
Not even close. Not even
Not even
close.
close. And there's so many other megalithic structures like that, that where'd they come from? How were they made? How could people using very limited, in technology, move rocks hundreds or thousands of miles, that rocks that weighed many multiple tons? How was it even possible? Yeah, slave labor, yeah, this and that, but
when you start doing the math,
yes, there would be evidence for that many people, or it just doesn't make sense.
When you start doing the math for the slave labor theory, there's not even enough males in that time period within Egypt to do it. Like, you would have to have every male working on it, and you can't have a civilization that way. And where can we point to anything else in history, like just beautiful, unbelievable, like amazing architecture that was built by slaves? Like, that doesn't happen. Like, you can't build amazing, beautiful things with slave labor. You have to have skilled craftsmanship. That's just the only possible way.
When people are hungry and starving and mistreated, they, I mean, I know when I'm, not that I've ever been even close to, but when I'm hungry or hangry,
you can't do anything.
Whatever I do isn't very good.
No. And you have absolutely no incentive to make it good. Like, you can only beat me so hard. Like, if you're beating me anyways, like, why am I even going to go out of my way to make it good? Like, you can go out to any prison and go out with the inmates on like I've been to jail before, and I've had to go do community service and work on the side of the freeway. You don't get shit done. Like, nothing gets done. We're kind of just all out there talking. You pick up a couple pieces of garbage. You're trying to find cigarettes. Like, that's all that really matters, is finding cigarettes or a can of chew or something, Like, that's all anybody ever cares about in that situation, and nothing gets done. And they would never send you to do anything skilled. That's why they put you on the side of the road or at the dump. Because it's like, we're going to keep you busy. We're going to make you work, but we're not stupid, and we don't expect you to do good work, essentially.
Right. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, I think so. That's the way I've always looked at it. One of my favorite subjects is the Younger Dryas. What the heck happened? Was it was it a comet? Was it the asteroid tails? Was it the sun? Did the sun have a massive solar event? And or was it a pole shift? There's a guy from your area who's big into pole shifts, and he thinks
suspicious observer.
Yes,
I follow
so
him. It's
you're
fascinating
living in
stuff.
the Valley of the Sun. You're good. And I don't know how much of what he says is true. Like, I heard him say a while back that there was like a tsunami that essentially went over the Sierra Nevadas. It's like, I don't know about that. I looked into it and I couldn't find any evidence. And maybe he's got it. Like, it's just not like, I'm not calling him up asking questions or anything. I'm trying to do my own research. But there's so many weird things that could be going on. Like, look at Three Body. It could be a very harsh universe out there, and we could be vastly different than anything that's ever evolved in this universe, which is
we could truly be special in some way, and our planet could just be this lush, absolute paradise. And look how we treat it, right? Look how we treat it. If this was like one of a kind in the entire universe, truly the most beautiful planet out there, it's such a shame that we're trashing it and trashing each other in so many different kinds of ways. I really hope for peaceful outcomes and for us to take better care of our beautiful home. But you're right. It's who knows? And and as far as Suspicious Observer, I really enjoy.
I watch his show every day.
I enjoy him, and I think that it's interesting. You look at these kinds of solar cycles and pole shifts and things like that, and these things have happened in our past. And there's geological evidence for all kinds of interesting catastrophic events. And if you look at the cycles involved, it seems to be that we could be in a cycle where we're hitting that, the upheaval portion of whatever might be going on with all that. And hey, say that's what let's go back to UFOs for a second and say that why, my big question with the whole thing is why the cover up? I believe there is a cover up, but why? what is so scary? I just don't believe it's national security issues or things like this.
Me neither.
What if the real thing is that, you know, just to throw one idea out there, I've got a million of them, but one idea is maybe something catastrophic is going to happen. That's why sightings have been ramping up since the 40s and our atomic age.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, you know, whatever species has been following us knows something big and catastrophic is going to happen, whether we do it to ourselves or something does it to us. You know, maybe it's a micro flare, micronova, or you know, some other kind of catastrophic celestial event.
Mm-hmm.
And they know at that point the aliens are going to make themselves known, maybe whisk some of us away and leave the rest of us behind. Maybe that's the cover up. You know, I mean, there's a million cover up ideas. I think that it's more likely something super crazy and scary than simply national security.
And look at what every major government in the world is doing right now. They're spending like there's no tomorrow.
Yes, they are. Yes,
and that
they are.
could be because they know there's not, which is a very scary thing, right?
Yeah, and that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it could be. And if you look at all of the billionaires right now building their bunkers in different places, and what do they know? I mean, is it just because they've got money to waste and they're interested in being a prepper? You know what? If I had $1 billion and, you know, I would be learning all kinds of cool things. I would be doing, you know, genuine charitable. I mean, of course, everyone says this. And of course, you know, you win the lottery and then you go blow it on crap. But, you know,
yeah, for sure.
I'm pretending I would be a good person.
I'd buy a lot of Bitcoin if I wanted a lot of
right.
I tell you that, I'd buy a lot of Bitcoin.
but a bunker, I think even with $1 billion, I don't think I'd build a bunker.
It's a waste of money.
Unless I really believed something terribly catastrophic was going to happen.
Unless you knew that it was, and you knew the date it was going to happen. Because imagine if you're building, like, these guys are building bunkers in like New Zealand. So if you're in Southern California when the asteroid hits, you're not getting to New Zealand. And like at that point, who's guarding it? You know, are your airplane guys who know where it is actually going to take you, or are they just going to go and try to break into it? So to me, it's like, if I was going to have a bunker, a bug out spot that wasn't where I was living and working, it would be luck of the draw if you were going to make it or not, unless you knew it was coming.
Right. And what exactly it was and what areas would be most affected.
And when I needed to be there.
Right. Exactly. So I just think that's super curious and intriguing. Shameful, really.
Like, yeah, it is. Absolutely. You know what else, like, I find completely shameful is, like, you get all of these crazy environmentalists who are, we're destroying the planet. We need to go move to new planets and terraform Mars. It's like, people, if we can't keep this planet habitable, what makes you think you could terraform another one? Like, that's just ridiculous. Every piece of technology you would need to terraform another planet would have to be proven here first. And I'm not one of these doomsday environmentalists. I don't think we're boiling the oceans. Like, settle down.
I think that a lot of the climate change science is hasn't been exactly proven myself. But I mean, we certainly can say we're polluting the heck out of this planet.
I'm there with you.
But in terms of like greater climate change questions, I think that, you know, there could be a case for the sun being one of the things that's affecting climate change and
the
changes in solar activity and the solution,
the solution should be climate mastery, not going back to the 7th century on windmills and you know, like, they want to just literally like they want to get rid of civilization and put us back to the Stone Age. A lot of these really hardcore environmentalists are just anti-human. They don't like people. They think that we're a disgusting, terrible, you know, breed of animal that doesn't deserve to be living. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them feel that way. And they don't want us to.
There are extremists in every
Yeah, oh, for sure, but I
profession.
think a lot of them are kind of
You know, and I
leading the
think
charge
that,
with climate change.
yeah, and I think in all of the sciences that there are a number of people, very gifted minds who have interesting ideas, but they oftentimes will, you know, there's a small subset of people that do this, but they, you know, they look at things as an intellectual puzzle and not like as real, valuing real human life. So you know, it can be easy to say on paper, well, it would be better if this happened to humanity or if people
Mhm.
did this or that. But you know, you have to really look at human beings, you know, from a personal level, I think. So
Absolutely. No, I'm like I
yeah.
said, I'm a libertarian. I'm an anarchist. I think you should treat people like individuals. You know, I'm not a collectivist. I don't think that you can treat one group the same and get great results out of it. Like I think it's all individual human actions. Like we were talking, like Betty and Barney Hill again. These are individuals who something big happened to them. Whatever
Right.
it was, whether it was the government screwing with them, whether it was, you know, something from somewhere else, whether it was something from Mars, something from here, us from the future. Like, I don't know what it was, but something big happened to them. And
Yes.
you can't like discount it, I don't think. And I kind of lost my train of
Yeah.
thought on that, but we're coming up on an hour. So, oh, we're at an hour. I was looking at the wrong one. Where can everybody follow you? You got any books or anything for sale? Tell us where people can follow
Yeah,
you.
you know, you can find out about my group and you can join it if you like, or at least follow our events at abqufos.com,
Sounds
abqufos.com.
good.
And
Right on.
everything's there. We've got a little podcast where we interview people for our members and different kind of online and in-person events. And I'm just
Interesting.
chilling out in Albuquerque thinking about what the hell's out there.
Yeah, I'm right here in Boise thinking the same thing. All right, everybody, it's been a pleasure talking with you, Birdie. I hope we can have you on
Thank you
again
so much.
sometime. We could talk for hours. I'm sure of that.
I am sure of that.
All right, have a good one.